Hello, this is Nick here from Gorgon Reviews. I am talking with Jalena and Hawane, the director uh, and of the documentary Standing Above the Clouds, which had its U.S. premiere as part of SIF's 50th anniversary. Standing Above the Clouds is a documentary about three intergenerational indigenous Hawaiian families seeking to protect their native land and sacred mountain, the towering inactive volcano Mauna Kea, from the construction of the world's largest telescope. Thank you so much for spending time here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
I like to ease into interviews first by getting to know the people slightly better. And with that, since this is a film festival, a celebration of film, unrelated, what do you remember first seeing in theaters growing up?
Um, I'm not sure what I first saw, but I do remember a really memorable theater experience was seeing Spirited Away when it had just came out, and I was really young. I was in like second grade or something, and seeing it so big, it scared me so much. And now, as an adult, I love it. I think it's, a masterpiece. But yeah, the when the parents transformed into the pigs, and I don't know, just all that stuff, seeing it so big, I was like, I cannot do this. But also showed the power and magic of cinema to really transport you to different places.
I love that movie. Um, I think that one of my most memorable experiences was seeing Whale Rider for the first time with my mom. It was the first time that I saw people that looked like me on a big screen, and I was pretty young when we went to go and see that, and I remember feeling like emotionally impacted. Like I felt everything in that movie as I feel everything for my own land and for my own people. And I just remember crying. That was my first time as a young person, like being so impacted that I cried at what I was seeing. And so I'll never forget that.
Looking through IMDb for information for this, of course, Jelena, this is your third time directing, but the first one that is a feature-length documentary. How did you find yourself first in the director's chair and getting into this method of storytelling?
That's a really good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think I I really have always just been drawn to like certain people and wanting to tell stories. And I think specifically for like Asian American Pacific Islander, like women and femmes, there's a certain perception of us in the world that's also very impacted by like colonialism and imperialism of being, like docile and submissive and kind of weak. And I feel like I have always felt like this need and like calling of like the women in my life are not like that. The kind of people that I grew up around, my aunties, like I always was surrounded by these women that were really like moving the world, getting things done, protecting their families, protecting their land. And I think those kinds of stories are what called me to being a director. And then also just the ability to kind of shape the world that you want to create when you're directing, of like you kind of set like what are the boundaries, what are the guidelines, like what is the space that we're going to create. And as a teacher and a healer, that's something that Hawane does too, and that's something that I've learned a lot from working with you and being around you so much over the years. But just how important that part is to the role of like, here's the kind of things that we're valuing as true, the kind of things that we're going to accept. And I feel like you can see that in my work of like questions around, are women suitable leaders, or things like that. It's not a question, it's just a guarantee, and those are kind of like part of the values of the worlds that I'm able to create through films and through being with different communities.
And 4 years ago was the release of the short, Standing Above the Clouds. How did the reception of that short let you expand to this feature length documentary?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Yeah, we released our short film Standing Above the Clouds in 2020, and it played at over 40 film festivals. It had a really great reception, and then it broadcasted on POV and also streamed on the Criterion Collection. So yeah, kind of across the board from like film spaces to movement spaces to educational conferences, like had a really great reception. And it was also in 2020. So I think we had a lot of travel plans around going to these different places and kind of making connections with different communities across the world. And then, of course, things shifted to be virtual. So I think kind of the momentum that it picked up, and then also the fact that a lot of these like industry and other events now were virtual, it allowed us to stay in Hawaii and keep filming and work on this expansion and like deepening through the feature length film.
And this is, of course, a topic about a fight that's kind of been going on for a really long time, because right now it's about a 30-meter telescope, but in the past it was about other telescopes. For either of you, of course, would you say the last few years have had a different energy around the local population to kind of like say no and put their foot down about this?
Absolutely. It's been such a powerful movement for not just Hawaii Island and not just for Mauna Kea, but for all of Hawaii. And so Mauna Kea has inspired so many different movements throughout our archipelago and has stood in solidarity with many movements around the world. And so that is something that has created relationships between all of our different worldwide communities that are standing up for the rights of the earth and for the rights of Indigenous people. And it's given a sense of pride and autonomy back to our own people that I'm so inspired to see. And as like for me growing up, in an Aloha Aina family, in a resistance family, a Kia'i family, where we have spent, generations showing up, standing up and speaking up for our land, being able to see the elders witness young people activated and educated and ready to show up has been really healing for our community as well.
I went to that website for the telescope. They had almost no information, of course, about this except for one smaller note on like the bottom somewhere. And they said they're working to be a model observation that demonstrates deep respect for the significance of Mauna Kea to the community. This documentary has several years of footage about this, but would you say that statement is accurate for today or still not really there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that is accurate at all when it comes to any corporation coming into Hawaii that is not willing to listen to the people and the thousands of people that have been allies to this movement. The 30-meter telescope throughout this entire journey has asked for compromise from our people, has gaslit our people, manipulated our people in so many ways, as so many big corporations do. And they have never listened to us. There's never been deep listening, compassionate listening, and that's evident in the fact that they're still trying to build TMTM, our sacred mountain.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of tense moments in the film, interactions between people and the police and camera, and everything got up close and personal. Now, obviously, we saw scenes of people getting abused and threatened and more. Was this also true for like the filming crew behind the scenes? Was that happening to all of them as well?
I will say that we worked with so many different film teams, and there was a media collective that was filming the action. So I want to give a big shout out to the Mauna Kea media team and Mikey guys and everyone who contributed footage. Thank you so much. And I will say that you could see Hawane's mom, Auntie Pua, kind of orchestrating things and communicating with the police, and so there was a level of organization. And I think, it's mentioned in the police that a lot of the police officers are related to people that are on the other side. This is an island, like this is shared family. This is your kids' like soccer coach, people that know each other on both sides. So it is also something that is deeply, emotionally traumatic and spiritually traumatic. But I think in terms of like but maybe compared to some of the police violence that we've seen on the continent, and that we're seeing now, it wasn't quite as of a dangerous or heightened situation, at least in my interpretation. But Havani, I'm also curious what you think about that, and over the years too on the different front lines.
It's very different. You know, in Hawaii, we are family. There's so many people that are on the other side that are the grandsons, granddaughters, daughters, sons, cousins, nieces, nephews of the people that are standing on the front lines. And so there is a different sense of respect and reverence for that relationship. Yes, and that doesn't mean that it's not painful, and it doesn't mean that it's not traumatic. You know, I was arrested in prayer. We were linked, you know, hand in hand in the middle of a prayer when we were arrested. We were forced apart, you know, and it does bring a level of PTSD into our psyche, into the way that we live, into the way that we move and interact. And I will say that it's starkly different from the way that the protectors were treated at Standing Rock and at Line 3 and in Black Lives Matter. It's painful to watch that as well, and to look at how different it is, and to know that there's a violence in all of it.
Mm-hmm. I'll admit, I've always considered myself to be a pretty big pro science guy, not just physically large. So I appreciate this documentary. It gave me something to look at from a different perspective, one I likely never on my own would have even thought about. You know, far away from it, it doesn't get the media attention, obviously. That's why the documentary was made. So I've already moved on with my life about caring about what the telescope people wanted, because, you know, whatever about them. They don't matter anymore. But do you have advice for others who might find themselves confused as well with a potential internal battle like this?
Every time I talk about, you know, Mauna Kea as, you know, my ancestral sacred space and the place that, like, I know that I come from by genealogy and by love, I always ask, what is your sacred space? You know, do you know the name of your mountain? Do you know the name of your river? Do you have a place that you would protect with everything that you have? And do you have something that is so special to you that you would risk everything for, and that you would stand for? And that's so important for people to reflect on before they have opinions or perspectives about anything happening in Hawaii, especially if they don't live here. Mm-hmm. This is our watershed. This is the Wawakua, the place of our gods and our goddesses. There's a reason why we do what we do and we speak up in this way. And it's because it's lineal. This is when I say sacred, it means it gives life. Mauna Kea gives life. Mauna Kea gives our land and our people life. It has been giving life for generations. And so when you're disconnected from your own land, and when you're confused about, you know, whether something is wrong or right, I just ask, you know, for people to tap into their own inner compass first. And then to center the voice of the first people, the indigenous people, and then to respect it. Because we are in a huge conversation in this world about consent. And when an indigenous people say, no, this is not right, this is not something that we agree to, respect that.
Really good answer. So with Hawaii being really far away from a lot of people over here, what can the average person do to help your cause?
There's a big petition that we have on the Protect Mauna Kea Instagram, and we're trying to get it to 500,000 followers. And so please visit the Protect Mauna Kea Instagram and click on the links. And mahalo nui, I want to shout out my sister, because she is the one that runs that Instagram and is doing an incredible job. And there is Mauna Kea Wear Wednesdays, where we wear something that reflects the movement every Wednesday, so that the conversation can continue to happen. Like Jalena is wearing a Poli Ahui Ke Kapu shirt. And there's a lot of music that has come out from the movement. I have an album called Together We Rise. You can listen to the music and also download it online under my name. And there's many other artists that have also put out songs for Mauna Kea. And there's one more thing that I'm going to ask Jalena to talk about with the students.
With the UCs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another big thing is that the telescope is funded by 6 countries, correct? Yeah, by 6 different countries, and one of the biggest funders is in the United States, and the UC system, or University of California system, is a really big funder of the telescope. So there's student organizing efforts across the UC system to get the Board of Regents to divest from the telescope project. So as you know, there's talks about divestment and talks about students, wanting to know a bit more about what their universities are funding. This is something that is being kind of brought up with renewed energy. And yeah, following Protect Mauna Kea is a great way to stay involved. And yeah, we'd love for you to talk about the Mauna, to share with people about, what you learned, and to come see the film. And then also to find out, whose land you're on right now, and what efforts can be put in to help the tribal lands that you're on, because there are so many different movements and fights to preserve this land that we're on regardless of where we are. And so, we really wanted this film to be dedicated to land protectors everywhere, and people that are standing up for their communities everywhere. And we know that there's so many things that need standing for in times like this.
There are a lot of those good stories also at SIF this year, besides this one, of course. On SIF, the documentary has been shown once so far and is being shown again tomorrow. How was the audience engagement for the first one? I don't know if you
It was
were
so
there.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, Hawane came with us for the premiere in Toronto, but couldn't make it for this one. But it was such a beautiful reception, and yeah, so many people were there. And it was a sunny day in Seattle, so we were like, oh my God, the fact that anyone's inside right now is a miracle. But yeah, a lot of just a really beautiful space. And I think we're so excited, obviously Hawane and her family living this for many years, but just all of us kind of holding this project and this film so close to our hearts for the 6 years of working on it. And then now, after a long process of working together to make sure that the film was representing everyone accurately and in a way that felt good and was in aligned with the movement, we're so excited to share it with the world and to bring it to audiences all around. So you can also follow Standing Above the Clouds on Instagram, and we have links in our bio on how to request a screening and keep up to date as screenings come to different cities near you.
Obviously, the topic of this documentary is incredibly personal. And something you're both passionate about, which makes sense. Do you have plans in the future to continue activism through other topics in documentaries? Or is it more just kind of worried, let's focus on this one thing right now? Out of curiosity.
Oh, yeah, I think I will continue making different types of projects, like both documentary and narrative. And yeah, for now, I'm just really excited to have this film released in the world. But I think there's so much humanizing and so much, fun things and silly things about activism that people might not know. And I hope to make projects about that in the future, and some with Hawane, hopefully, too.
Once again, thank you both for spending your time answering some questions about the directing of the documentary and also the events of the documentary about. If you did miss it earlier in the week, it is officially playing at SIF on Friday, May 17th at the SIF Cinema Uptown Theater at 3:30 p.m. The day itself in the theater has a strong theme, because right before it's The Tundra Within Me, and then Molokai Bound right after. It seemed intentional. I would highly recommend going and staying for all three, of course. Really open up your experiences and the understandings of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching our film and for all your sweet words about it. Sorry.
Thank you so much.